Welcome back to Breaking Bet, everybody. It's Wednesday, October 16th. We're moving along in the NFL season. It's already week 7. I feel like Eric Pauly, my guy, we've been talking about props and awards and all that crap since the summer. And we're closing into the halfway point of the season. I always say this every NFL year. I can't believe how quick it moves along. In order to help me properly break down this slate, Eric Pauly is joining us. My friend, how are you?
What's going on, everybody? Always a pleasure to be here with you, Johnny. Dude, we got to just take football season we can't take it for granted. Like, we wait all year. It goes by so quickly. And what's better than football season? And the fact that we're in week 7 baffles my mind.
Well, I mean, I think college baseball is better than the NFL season. And
I think MLB season is better than football season.
Yeah, I mean, listen, bro, I'm telling you, you get a weekend of college baseball. That's that's where it's at. I'm telling you. But listen, I didn't really love the slate in week 6. I thought there was a couple good games. Don't get me wrong. Dallas, Detroit, that was I feel good about that one because I told you, I'm like, I think Detroit puts it on Dallas. Like, they were Ja Rule on Ashante, put it on me. Like, that's what the Lions did to the Cowboys last weekend. But outside of that, I mean, you know what? Let me back up for a second. We did get a very good game with the Commanders and the Ravens. Jaden Daniels held his own, and honestly, I think outplayed Lamar. Lamar was solid, but King Henry drove it home. There was a couple good matchups, but overall, it wasn't, in my opinion, that fantastic. Sunday night was an absolute snooze fest. Monday night was kind of a snooze fest. Terrible officiating. What was your thoughts on week 6?
So obviously we can't ignore the obvious of the chalk fest that happened this week. Sportsbooks everywhere discussing how so many games went over. Obviously all these favorites covered. And listen, I'm not sitting here saying I'm the sharpest tool in the shed. I do my due diligence. I originate my numbers. I work with sharp people. So I like to think that more often than not, I put myself on the sharp side, and that a week like this, I think, again, I don't want to misquote this, but I saw this tweet that, like, going into the Bills-Jets game, that, like, it was the first week where, like, all these favorites covered since literally, like, the 1970 merger.
All the road teams, too. All the road favorites.
Yeah. Exactly, dude. So, like, yeah, it sucks. Yeah, obviously for the people that tell me, I lick my wounds, but I do always, in Parlay Science, recap my weeks. I do always come on here and we talk about what happened. And it's not even that I play it's not like I play like 6 games and lost 6 games. I do play a couple things for 2 units, or I did have a double down on Arizona, which obviously didn't come through whatsoever. But all in the game, lick the wounds, and we regroup.
That was the most disappointing thing for me on Sunday. Was Arizona. It was a prime Royal Mint spot, and they flat out fell on their face. Arizona, Eric, I can't even tell you. I think every week I say this, how Arizona is the highest variance team in the NFL. And this is what you get. You get a week where they just flat out don't show up. And, it sucks because this was a Royal Mint spot. It wasn't like it was a +4. Like, this is the wheelhouse. This is my nitro zone. And the Cardinals, I thought were going to have a good shot to win. I got to be honest, though. I don't think Green Bay did anything that spectacular to win the game. I think the Cardinals, honestly, just gave away so many opportunities. I think they lost 3 fumbles in the second half. They had Jordan Love on a key 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 10 where they completely did an all-out blitz, cover 0, and they got to him. And Love just off his back foot heaved one. And I think it was Sean Murphy bunting, lets Romeo Doubs catch it for a touchdown. Like, he had no idea where he was. And it was a bunch of stuff like that I just think Arizona was really that was, for me, the worst.
It's an offense-driven league. And when you can't play a lick of defense, like the Arizona Cardinals, Washington Commanders, even some good teams like the Buffalo Bills and Baltimore Ravens, they don't even have good defenses by any means. So when you come into a situation where, an offense is humming and you literally have a very small probability of making a stop, it's very difficult to win. And then also that leads to, and we can also talk about this in some of the previews, that leads to these teams also be able to win by margin when you wouldn't expect them to be able to win by margin. Because if you can't get a stop, then you're going for, on a 4th down trying to convert. and then try to keep a 1-possession game close. Then next you know, if you're 2-possession game and you're covering a big number, as some of these teams did, and you don't think that they necessarily deserve to. But I think it's I just love how all the weeks 1 through 3, the whole reaction, the cover 2, scoring is so down, these teams suck, like they can't do it. Then next thing you know, there's offensive explosions. Like everything is going to regress to the mean. And again, like I know people say like positive regression, this and that. It's all just regression. Like if it's on one end of the tail, the other end of the tail, it's going back to the middle regardless. And I think we've already seen so much of that. And I think again that we'll talk about this more in the games, but it is an offense-driven league, the National Football League. And when you can't get a stop and the other team can literally get what they want at will, you're going to have a bad time.
Definitely well said. Speaking of, we got week 7 on deck here. This is my birthday weekend, by the way. So everybody, if you wanted to wish me happy birthday, going to be the big 3-1 this year. And that is why your boy JohnnyVTV is giving me a little something special here on the Discord. You get 31% off when signing up for a month subscription using birthday month. 31 years old, 31%. I thought maybe that could have been very easily, something easy to pick up on. This is my gift to you. Please feel free to enjoy some 31% off when you sign up for a month subscription on dubclub.com/JohnnyVTV. Eric Pauly, week 7 here on deck. Before we get into the whole slate, give me your favorite look or your favorite game for this upcoming week.
Favorite look going to be Panthers Commies over. Those teams can't stop a JV high school football team. Like we talk about a little bit detail, we go deeper into that game. 51.5 is I think too low. I think again these teams will be able to score at will. And obviously I'm very excited to watch Vikings Lions, the aftermath of the Aiden Hutchinson injury, which again we'll talk in more detail. Then obviously you have the Super Bowl rematch and Patrick Mahomes is an underdog. And I don't care that that's the squarest statement in the world, but I'm betting Patrick Mahomes is an underdog and I don't care.
I definitely got to say I'm interested as hell in that game and to talk about it a little bit further. But let's make them wait. Let's make everybody wait. It's good for them, as Kenny Powers once said. We start off here with a Thursday night stinker. The way the NFL is trying to sell this and market this, and sometimes there's nothing you can really do. Is Sean Payton's return to New Orleans, yada yada yada. The Broncos were humming, and they were kind of due for a letdown spot when it came with the Chargers this weekend. They won with margin coming off the bye week. Not really much of a surprise. Lose Patrick Surtain, who's been the best corner in football this year. They're 2.5-point favorites still at New Orleans, who, when you consider this Saints team started 2-0, putting up 40 beans back-to-back, they have hit the skids hard. They're now 2-4. They lost Rashid Shaheed. Olave's going to be out. Derek Carr's out. They're going with Spencer Rattler. This is a disaster. I don't have any action here, but if I was, just based off the healthier team, I think you got to go Broncos.
Yeah, Broncos missing Patrick Surtain, but obviously with Olave and Shaheed out, that mitigates that loss a little bit as well. Also to mention Taysom Hill also being out. We know that Clint Kubiak in the limited time Hill's been healthy. They've done a good job of mixing him in. And of course, it's not even that, it's also the offensive line with Eric McCoy and Cesar Ruiz being hurt. Like this is a decimated team. Just I don't even like, when would you have ever expected Bo Nix to be a 2.5-point favorite in his NFL career? It definitely was not week 7 on the road in New Orleans. That was never the answer. And there's just so many uncertainties. Like, not only do you have, of course, Bo Nix as a rookie, but you also have Spencer Rattler in his second career start on a short week, missing 2 of his top 3 weapons, 4 technically with Taysom Hill, and then 2 starting offensive linemen, maybe even a third in Lucas Patrick. Like, how do you succeed? And we know that this Broncos team is overrated, like you said, Johnny. It was a great letdown spot for them because just there's a talent level, right? They just aren't talented enough to maintain that level of play. Obviously, Sean Payton is a great, fantastic coach, and you expect this team to be a well-coached team, which they are. But just from a pure talent perspective, they're not good. On the flip side, with all these Saints problems and Dennis Allen being one of the worst head coaches in the National Football League. I would have to lean Denver here. The fact that the market is like sitting still 2.5, because again, the Saints still pound for pound are the better football team. But I'm not going to read to the narratives too much, but Sean Payton wants to lay it on these guys. You know that they're going to come out more prepared. You know that even though it's still 2 rookies on a short week in their Thursday night, first appearances ever on Thursday night, which is a change dynamic. These aren't 2 guys you're confident in by any means. Like Bo Nix's EPA numbers last week looked better because he had those rushing yards. But, man, he's really not great. The Broncos could not run the football. Maybe that'll change against the Saints' run defense that is actually let's see, I have the numbers here. They're 17th in rush EPA, so you can run the football on them. We're going to expect a heavy dose of Javonte Williams. I would look at his rushing and receiving props. But outside of, maybe sprinkling on a parlay, this is a game where you got to be digging deep in the
touchdown deep in your bag, kid. You got to be deep in the bag.
Yeah, like there's no chalk in this game. Like, this is just obviously Kamara. That's the one exception. Not a game that I'm dying to watch. Thank God we have some postseason baseball tomorrow, so I can have that on the big screen and have this little screen.
Speaking of postseason baseball, I'm going to the Mets game tomorrow, so I won't be watching this game. I'm excited. Game 5 in Big Apple, Queens. Listen, here's the thing. I think Denver is an interesting spot here, especially with Sean Payton, because Sean Payton wrote the book on being an arrogant asshole of a head coach. He's gonna do what Dan Campbell did to the Cowboys if he gets a chance. He's gonna throw it on New Orleans. That said, I think I would look into maybe taking a Denver alt line, like -6.5. You get that around 2-1. I think the Broncos can win and win big here. The problem is the defense is still pretty solid overall. Denver's, even without Surtain, it's manageable. The issue is there's a big cluster injury on offense for New Orleans. It's going to be difficult for them to score points. I'm sorry, if Alvin Kamara gets bottled up the way we expect. They're going to force Spencer Rattler to beat you. And mind you, like New Orleans, they gave it a good comeback try in the first half of last week. That was a bizarre game. And look how their defense still ended up getting blown out off the field. It's apples and oranges with Tampa Bay and Denver, but same kind of thing as I don't know. I like the Broncos here. If I was going to bet something, who knows? Might do a little alt spread, Mets money line parlay, a little action in, a little sprinkle. Who knows? Okay. Another London game. I don't know, man. Like, I know the Jacksonville Jaguars owner, Shad Khan, who I hate because once upon a time he didn't pay Maurice Jones-Drew after a 1,600-plus yard season, and that was basically the end of the MJD era. He is, insistent on playing in London. This is the Jaguars' second consecutive game in London. They stayed in England for the whole week so they could play another game. They're losing a precious home game this time. They play the Patriots. This is a Royal Mint spot. Eric, I'll let you take this one. You going with the Jags?
Well, the whole Shad Khan thing, they did this last year as well. They stayed. And this is when they beat the Buffalo Bills in a Royal Mint spot at 5.5-point underdogs. They won outright.
Ooh, you remember. Good for you.
Distinctly, because I had the Jacksonville Jaguars money line in that game and on an alt spread as well. So that is a game I remember. Listen, I am impressed with Drake May, but his ceiling is still capped because when you don't have playmakers, no matter how good you are, yes, the quarterback can elevate the team. And we did see a glimpse of what that looks like for this Patriots team on Sunday. But you have, again, a rookie quarterback in his second career NFL start overseas. Now, how big of an impact is it? You can't really quantify that. On the flip side, it is certainly an advantage for the Jaguars to have already been in London. And listen, maybe I'm just bad at what I do, but I still think that there's a clear argument that the Jaguars could be a 3-3 football team. I'm not saying that means that they're a good football team, but I think that they're better than their 1-5 record. They dropped 4 touchdowns in that game against the Bears. They looked absolutely lethargic. And could they be dead in the water, in just a poorly coached, poorly managed team? Absolutely. The defense is horrendous. There's no getting around that. But it is certainly an advantage for the Jaguars to have stayed a second week in London. And pair in the fact that last week the Jaguars not only were they late to London because of the hurricane, they also had to deal with like the aftermath of their families. Like they have friends and family down there. Like for all they know, like that was laying on their minds that, all these things were happening in Florida. And like, again, hard to quantify, but also hard to dismiss as not a factor. Now, on the flip side, Drake May is going to be able to move the football, and I think that's going to be, we're going to see some exciting things. Caleb Williams had his best game, albeit, his sixth start versus May's second start of his NFL career. But this Jaguars offense, like, it's still good. Like, again, like they got blown up by the Bears. They dropped 4 touchdowns. I had Gabe Davis first touchdown. The ball hits him in the chest, and, we know how that went. Also had Jags money line, and I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for this team. Ends up being a shitty wager, even though I got some amazing closing line value. Throw it in the closing line value trash can. Doesn't make a difference. But I still think that the Jaguars win this game. I think this total is actually a little low because I think the Patriots will be able to move the ball. If the Jaguars pass defense, like it's really bad. It's dead last in pass CPA, dead last in explosive plays allowed, dead last in neutral pass rate. And the difference between Brissett and May is that Brissett was by far the most conservative quarterback. He literally would just look to check down and or throw it away. Where Drake May, at least they give him some vertical opportunity to throw the ball down the football field, and we know Jaguars can't stop a nosebleed. On the flip side, I've been saying it all summer long, and I'm glad it's finally coming to fruition. This Patriots defense is horrible. The only reason why they were good last year with similar pieces was because Bill Belichick is literally the best defensive coach ever, and that's why he had them punching above their weight class. They are not talented. So I think that we'll see Trevor Lawrence have success moving the ball up and down the field, even if it doesn't result in these touchdowns because their receivers are dropping end zone balls. It's a whole other story, but you're not dropping 4 touchdowns every game. The Patriots now have a vertical passing threat with May. I think this total is a little low, and I think the Jaguars win, and I want nothing to do with the 5.5. I think at this point I get the Royal Mint, and it's something I, at this point, don't take lightly because of you, Johnny. But at the same time, I find it hard to make the spread 5.5. I think the market is correctly pricing in the advantage the Jags have for staying the second week. And I'm not even looking at the spread here. I think the Jaguars win. I actually look at the total and going over. I think that both teams will move the football. And the Jags are 31st neutral pass rate. Like Drake May is going to throw the ball. Obviously, the receivers aren't great, but it's not like they get pressure Jacksonville. I think it's a very different matchup than facing the Texans in your first game to then take on the Jaguars in game 2.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Royal Mint has been a little bit disappointing. Back-to-back losers with the Saints against the Chiefs and the Cardinals against the Packers. I think we're due for a little bounce back here. But to be honest with you, dude, I just don't think Jacksonville's good. I feel like we keep doing this every week. We're like, all right, well, the Jags are due. They got to play better. I don't know. I see a team that just does no heart. Doug Peterson is a guy that is a Super Bowl winning coach. What is going on? This team had – I told you this like 2 weeks ago. This team is playing with no effort. Their fundamentals are weak. They look like they don't want to be there. They have so much talent and have not met any sort of expectation that was on there. This is a team that me and you talked about in the summer that said, hey, the Jags have a shot to be there in contention for the AFC South with the roster that they have. Their defense needed a little bit of work, but they have some studs on that defense, especially in the front seven. This is a team that could be there, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
I have not seen any shred of that at all this year. I think it's a stale message at this point from Peterson. And listen, maybe they win this game. Maybe they win by 10, 20, whatever. It's hard for me to want to get in bed with the Jacksonville Jaguars at this point of any margin.
100%. They traded Roy Robertson Harris, defensive tackle. Like, if they lose this football game, I mean, it's over. Evan Ingram's probably being traded. Other pieces are probably being traded. You could argue that why wait and do it now, but at the same time, again, like offensively, this team moves the football. So again, it doesn't mean that they're a good team or anything like that. That's not the point I'm making, but this is an offense where you can expect them to at least again, like they miss touchdowns. Like they just don't convert catches. There were 4 dropped touchdowns if I counted correctly in that game. And I'm not saying they deserve to win this and that. I'm not going on that limb or anything like that. But maybe one more week of not quitting the Jags here, to be honest with you. Maybe I'm stupid at this point because they, fool me once, shame on me. Shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Like, maybe I'm drinking too much Kool-Aid with them, but I don't know. I can't quit them yet.
I know. It's like a drug for you. You can't quit the Jaguars every week. We're having the same conversation.
We are.
Maybe I take the Patriots Royal Mint. It's like I said, it's a play. I always play. Obviously, we've got to wait to see what the closing line is. So I probably won't make a decision until closer in the week. I want to see if there's some extra Jags team where everyone's like, oh well, this is the shot for Peterson. This is his career, basically with Jacksonville on the line. True, but all right. A team that blew out Jacksonville, by the way, is the Buffalo Bills. They put a hurting on them. They put a 40 bean on them once upon a time. Actually, that didn't close as a Royal Mint spot. That was there until like the final hour where it got bought down to Jacksonville plus 4.5. Buffalo is an 8.5-point favorite at the moment at home against Tennessee. We'll start here. Bills all the way. You know what my dad told me when I was young? John, take the small, lay the big. This is a lay the big spot. I think Buffalo drops the hammer on them. I don't necessarily think the Bills are a good team. And I will say the Monday night aspect, which if you've paid attention, most teams that have played on Monday night the following week, even if they've won, they've played lethargic. I don't know if there's any team that played on Monday night and then the next week they thumped in convincing fashion. I have to go back and check that, but that's something I've actually been keeping my eye on. Maybe Washington. Washington was the only team that really did that. But in any case, I think Buffalo gets this done here, Eric. The Titans' defense is not terrible, but with the addition of Amari Cooper, I think L'Jarius Sneed can, kind of erase him a little bit to the point where it's Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, and the rest of the crew that steps up. But honestly, once the Bills get up, there's no way that Will Levis is going to lead some sort of comeback. Maybe they backdoor it, but I think Buffalo's going to get up early and then they're just going to just run the clock on them.
Well, like the Commander spot is apples to oranges because they were underdogs. It's obviously very different coming from Monday, being a dog versus coming from Monday, laying as a favorite. Yes, they're on the road, but the flight from Buffalo to New York is literally 45 minutes. So not a big deal there for the travel, but I'm 100% in agreement with you. The one true statement about the Buffalo Bills in the last 2 years prior to this year, this is why people were a little bit skeptical on them this year, is they played easy schedules of opposing quarterbacks. What did they do, especially at home against these shitty quarterbacks? They absolutely dismantled them. What do they have this week? A absolutely crappy quarterback coming into the stadium, and even the backup quarterback, Mason Rudolph, who was better than Will Levis, still isn't moving any needles here. So I'm with you that this is a spot for the Buffalo Bills, minus 8.5, 2.5 in a teaser. Like I know that this, chalk was getting murdered, and then last week they called them all the way right back. I'm not considering any of that nonsense. Buffalo Bills in the teaser, no hesitation. I'd even lay the 8.5. I'm with you, Johnny. I make the game 8.5. So like at the 9, I'd see 10, but I'm not betting Tennessee. Again, it comes down to me, like I said, Johnny. For the last 2 years, what Buffalo did is they beat up on crappy quarterbacks. That especially at home, they have a crappy quarterback at home. This defense the secondary is good. The Tennessee Titans love to run the football because they know Will Levis stinks. Yes, they can have a little bit of success running it on Buffalo, but you're not winning and or covering 8.5 trying to run the ball when, like you said, Johnny, you're probably down 14-0 before you blink.
Exactly. I mean, it's well said. It's hard because where is the scenario that the Titans score even 20 points outside of
to score 10. When I was looking at it and doing brains down, I was like, literally, how did the Titans score 10?
I mean, here's the other thing. I don't know what your opinion on this is. Josh Allen on paper looks good for an MVP bid with his stats. And listen, it's fair. My buddy and I were having this conversation. I don't think he's done by any stretch. I think he's firmly in the mix, but I think he's definitely supplanted by at least CJ Stroud and Lamar. I think when you look at Josh Allen, the numbers are going to look pretty solid. Like he's not going to have the passing yards this year. He might have like 4,200 at best. I think now the issue is for Josh Allen, he's lost a lot of these big tilts. He's lost the Ravens. He got smoked. He lost the Texans. that was a close game, but I don't know, man. It's going to take some dramatic stuff for Josh Allen to get this MVP bid here, even though the stats look good. He hasn't turned the ball over yet. I don't know what your thought is. Like, he's trending around plus 650. Now you get the Amari Cooper. I don't know. I probably would say Allen is on the wrong side of this because he's lost the key tiebreakers. What do you think?
I mean, truthfully, considering I'm in New York and these markets aren't available to me, I don't really dive into preseason, like into during the season. Like preseason, I always look at because I could take a quick trip to Jersey, but like I'm not taking a quick trip to Jersey to get plus Josh Allen plus 650. So I see where you're coming from, just from a overall perspective. But with that being said, you can't discount how the MVP award is also a team award to an extent. So if the Buffalo Bills continue to win football games and they end up at the number 1 seed in the AFC East, and Josh Allen has comparable, if not just a little slightly worse to, Lamar Stroud, but they finish higher than them in the standings, that they would default probably to Allen in that case.
Yeah. No, I know. That's why he's in it. It's just, I don't know. I don't think I'm running to the window to bet 650 anymore. I saw 11-1, I think, before the week started. But I'm like, I could bet that, but I don't know. I didn't really want to. Now you're getting certain numbers here. Our boy Jaden Daniels kind of fell back. We'll get into him in just a second. We got here the Texans and Green Bay Packers, bro. Packers minus 2.5. Stroud, Jordan Love, 2 trendy teams from each conference to make the Super Bowl. 2 trendy quarterbacks that are young coming into another year under center to win MVP. Do you think this is a Green Bay Packers spot or Houston Texans?
So I think we're going to see. So it's hard because, again, you have to always compare like who they played. Jordan Love looked great. They played arguably the worst defense in football. Yeah, CJ Stroud finally looked good again. He played arguably the second worst defense in football, if not the worst defense, or clearly a bottom 5. They both played bottom 5 defenses last week and obviously showed out. Stroud had that pick, but that was like a tip play in the end zone. Like this, Joe Mixon, we mentioned this last week going into this game, which is why I personally stayed off Houston. I wanted to see what it looked like without Nico Collins. Getting Joe Mixon back was huge. Like, this is a team where they clearly need one of them. Like, obviously having both is when this team looks like it's at its best. But they did well again against a Patriots team without their best vertical threat, and Joe Mixon ran wild. And I think it could be a similar situation. Like, I don't think this Green Bay Packers team is as good as advertised. I only make this game Green Bay -2, so I do have them as favorites. But if I'm getting a 3 at any point, which I think are actually gone in the market, let me take a look. I have it right here. I see a 3 out there at some shops. That's where I look at the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud in his career again, like, in bad weather outside, because he's plays inside in the dome, has performed poorly last week in New England. Not a worry. In Green Bay this week, I don't think it's going to be a worry at all. Jordan Love, I'm not sold on him being this absolutely amazing quarterback. I think he's a very good quarterback. He still makes these crazy mistakes, and again, beating the Cardinals by the margin that they did does not impress me whatsoever. And also considering like the second Romeo catch, like that was an insane catch move into the end zone for a touchdown, that second touchdown in the pylon when he made that spinning play. Like, that's something that, it's a great player making a great play, and that's going to happen in the National Football League. But that was like so absurd. I don't think it got enough credit for how crazy of a catch and move to get in the end zone that was. I lean Houston here, like fully. Like, I know that it probably seems against square. You have a 5-1 team against the Packers. I just think that the Texans are still the better football team. I have them rated similarly, and I give the home field to Green Bay, making it 2. But at 3, you're giving me a whole field goal. And again, these are 2 teams where like touchdowns are going to be paramount. They're going to be going for scoring because they're high octane offenses. And of course, you're going to expect LaFleur to have a good game plan. I think that they're a better coach team than the Packers. But I'm not convinced that this Packers defense is really great by any stretch of the imagination. And I think that they're running into probably the biggest buzzsaw that they're running into so far outside of Minnesota. And yeah, you could argue Minnesota is better than Houston, but Houston's still a very good football team. I don't think this Packers team deserves this much credit in the market considering what they've done this season. Like, yeah, it's impressive that they beat, these teams with Malik Willis, but considering, again, who they beat, the Titans And the Colts, I'm not really impressed. I think it's a Houston Texans spot. I'm taking the 3 with Houston.
There is the 3 on Houston and DraftKings, so that is of note. Early look here in the week, I think I'm going with, on the opposite side of you. I'm going with Green Bay. I think Houston is very talented, but I think I've made a note to you saying, not just in the preseason, where I said I need to see it from Houston. Everybody's crowning them already. I got to be honest, I haven't been impressed with them at all this year. I haven't seen one moment where I'm like, wow, Houston looked great. Like, okay, you beat the Patriots by 20. That doesn't do it for me. If you look at what Green Bay or Houston has done, they barely held on against the Colts week 1. They barely beat the Bears, and I know we're going to say they should have scored and covered, touchdown fumble going into the end zone. I get it, I know. But to be honest, they didn't really move the ball that much against the Bears. It wasn't impressed. They got blown out at Minnesota, the one team that they really played that honestly has been good. Jacksonville, they struggle with. They, it was a couple weird mistakes that kind of helped them win that game. Buffalo, they won, but Stroud didn't play well at all. The Bills kind of blew the opportunity to take that game. And then the Patriots, they won by 20. I think Houston is going to figure it out throughout the season. I still think they're going to be a formidable AFC opponent for some of these other powerhouses. I do like the Texans, but I think I would probably look Green Bay early on. And the reason is I just don't know if CJ Stroud can kind of get out of his own way. He hasn't played a relatively clean game, for my opinion. This is not a guy that's looked like an MVP candidate overall, especially considering the easy schedule he's had. And now no Nico Collins is big. You have Stephon Diggs, who, if Jair Alexander plays, and I have to check on that, he could be erased. Then you have Tank Dell, who's going to have a bigger role, but it's not a guy that's really done that much. And Joe Mixon's good, don't get me wrong, but honestly, I think Green Bay with Jordan Love is going to draw a lot more mismatches if they can keep him upright. Because, again, you do have Danielle Hunter and you have Will Anderson that can get after the passer, and that's huge. But I think you can still move the ball on this Texan secondary with the right offense. And Jaden Reed, if he plays and he's right, he's going to be a nightmare for Houston secondary.
No, I do agree. Like, I was one of the people standing on the table for Houston. I've, of course, downgraded them despite their record, because records don't matter. It's what actually happens on the football field. And the one thing, like you said there, Johnny, at the end, the Houston Texans defense, as it stands, are last in average depth of target and 16th in explosive pass percentage. Jordan Love loves slinging that thing down the field. So definitely something to monitor, the Packers' ability to produce big plays, and it's Texans defense susceptible to those big plays.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Quick NFL break here. It is currently 0-0 in the Mets game. Bottom first, 1 out. Walker Buehler got Frankie Lindor to fly out to center because the Padres squatted and took a big dump on my face. I ended up grabbing Frankie Lindor 12-1 to win World Series MVP. All right, Cincinnati Bengals, 5.5 at Cleveland. This is not the Royal Mint spot because Cincinnati's on the road and they're the favorite. Browns, it's starting. Amari Cooper gets shipped. There's a lot of reports with Deshaun Watson and how bad they want to move on, but they're kind of chained to him. And Nick Chubb might be back this week, which is huge. That's exciting. I don't think that's going to be enough, though. I think Cleveland and the team has pretty much kind of given up. They look like they don't want to be out there. They're done, Eric, with this Deshaun Watson thing, and they're going to have to pay the price. That's what you get. And it's unfortunate because the rest of the players, where there's still talent on this roster, they're going to have to bear the brunt of this incredibly horrific, all-time bad contract. I know the Cincinnati Bengals have struggled in the past against Cleveland. I don't think it's going to matter. I think Cincinnati's going to take care of business here.
I agree. Like, it's also a point, like, again, definitely bet numbers, not teams, but I make the game on 6. It opened at 4.5, and everything has been in the Bengals. And obviously the Mark Cooper trade, but like Mark Cooper's a good football player. He's not 2.5 points worth of spread. Like this is clearly professional money coming on Cincinnati. And you can only imagine, like you said, like what that locker room psyche is like in Cleveland. It's definitely horrible. They definitely are miserable. Like every player there definitely wishes they were not there. Pair that with Denzel Ward still dealing with being injured, Myles Garrett being banged up, his offensive line being banged up. Then the cherry on top is Deshaun Watson's the worst quarterback in football. So how do you have any success? Any confidence in this offense to have any success? You can't. You don't. I don't. I want nothing to do with it. The Bengals barely beat the Giants. I mean, barely. It's probably not the way to say it, but I just there's nothing about Cleveland that makes me want to even pretend to think that they have a chance. And again, like this is a situation. I'm sitting on a Browns worst record ticket, so give me the Bengals all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is something that I wanted to point out about this. Let me just pull it up real quick. Eric, I know we spoke about this. Sorry. I know we spoke about this last week after the Ravens beat the Giants, or Ravens beat the Bengals. But now is the time to jump in on the Joe Burrow MVP ticket. You got a free shot. It was 22-1 before the Giants game. And, he didn't really have an impressive performance, but they won. And he's still 22-1. So you basically got a free spin. And obviously what you saw on Sunday night was not impressive. But I got to be honest, like, I liked the Giants right before kickoff. And honestly, it was a bad beat because the Giants were a 3.5-point underdog. And you know how I feel about 3.5-point underdogs. That's my second favorite trend to get on. But what I've noticed is right before kickoff, and I'm talking within an hour before kickoff, if a number gets steamed to one side, I bet the other way. And in this case, it was Bengals moving from 3.5 to 4.5. And I said, that's it. I'm taking the Giants. Everyone's like, well, no Malik Neighbors, Daniel Jones sucks, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's strange because the Giants have this like weird thing when they just decide to randomly show up and play. Obviously, that 4.5 would have been good if Chase Brown did what he should have done and slid, not scored the touchdown. But I mean, that sucked. But, Cincinnati did get the job done in any case. And I think now, when you look at what the Bengals have, this is why I think it's interesting. So they're a 2-4 football team, which on paper looks bad. But Joe Burrow's numbers are probably as good as any quarterback so far this season. So he's got the statistical profile of an MVP at the moment, but the team success isn't there, Eric, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now look at what they've got coming up. You have at Cleveland, who we both like, Cincinnati. You have home to Philly, which is no longer a bloodbath of a game. It's not an easy game. It's definitely winnable, though. Then you have the Raiders. Then you have a rematch at Baltimore with the Ravens. Then you have at the Chargers. Then you have home to the Steelers. Then you have at the Cowboys. You have at the Titans. You have home to the Browns. You have home to the Broncos. You have at the Steelers. I don't see one unreasonable game that they can't win on the schedule. The hardest one's going to be at Baltimore in the rematch. But, typically I like these kind of teams splitting. I got to say, Eric, 22-1 on Joe Burrow right now looks pretty good.
I was in agreement with you before last week, and I am certainly still in agreement with you heading into this week. EPA numbers, success rate numbers, we're near the top for Joe Burrow, third success rate, third EPA. He's absolutely balling. This Bengals offense has never been the problem this season. It's been the defense. And when you get to play the worst offense in football, it should be a break. I know it's divisional games, which are always a little bit wonky, but again, you can't underestimate the definite horrible psyche / just vibe that's happening in that Cleveland Browns locker. Like, there's no way the Browns are sitting in their locker room right now, like, yo, like, we're gonna turn this ship around. Like, we gotta, like, get it together. Like, nah, they're probably like, bro, like, when's my flight to Cancun in December? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're done. Am I getting traded? Like, please, like, agent, like, get me out of here ASAP. It's definitely that situation versus like a But the Bengals where it's like, bro, we're 1-4, but like, no, we should have won this game. We're better than this. We're better than that. We still should do it. Like, no, like they're entirely opposite teams in that regard.
And I'll say this as well. I would also take the 10-1 ticket on Jamar Chase for Offensive Player of the Year. In my opinion, so back it up, Chase is second in yards, 565, first in touchdowns at 5. He's 8th in receptions right now. But let me tell you this. The only guy, in my real opinion, that is ahead of Jamar Chase right now in this award is Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's on pace for 2,000 yards, probably 20 touchdowns. Fair. The only reason why, and I'll say this, if Chase hits his pace of 1,600 receiving yards and 14 touchdowns and 96 catches, he won't get it. However, Derrick Henry is an older back who's going to be dealing with more carries as the season goes on. If Henry were to miss a couple games, 2-3 games, now this entire thing gets jumbled up. You have Justin Jefferson's about half the price of Jamar Chase. Obviously, Jettas is always a threat, but I think right now Chase is the guy that I would have. He's the second pick behind Henry right now, and you're just kind of banking on Derrick Henry to miss a few games. So the two studs for the Bengals I would look at betting now.
I agree.
Philadelphia -3 at the New York Giants. I think Malik Neighbors might be back on this one. I don't like the Eagles. I am over the Eagles. They had a tough time against Cleveland this past Sunday. If Malik Neighbors is back, bro, I think I might go Giants. If it stays at 3. If it's 3.5, I'm going Philly. But at 3, with Neighbors back, I think I might roll with the Giants, even with Andrew Thomas out for the rest of the season.
I was going to mention that because that's obviously a huge loss.
Yep.
And Jordan Mailata also for the Eagles offensive lineman. That's a big loss if he doesn't play this week. Considering the Giants' pass rush, which we know is legit. Obviously, NFC East game, you're going to get the best versions of these two teams, especially the Eagles want to. Obviously, the Eagles, all this anticipation, I was so high on them coming to the year. The whole Nick Sirianni thing, I didn't believe that he was as mediocre of a coach as he is coming into the year. I thought it was a little bit overblown, but then there is something to be said about your coach screaming into the sidelines after barely beating a team that's 9.5-point favorites, and then the third-string quarterback looking at the coach like, "What the hell are you doing, bro?" Like, this is clearly like that same dysfunction that clearly bogged them down last year. It's clearly not been alleviated. On the Giants side, this is the team where I talked about going into the Bengals game where you could probably argue that the offense was a little bit underrated. And then what do? They put up a stinker on offense and then put up a great game on defense. Then it's like, do you want to make the argument that the Giants defense is maybe underrated? And I think you could make that argument. But what the conclusion I came to at the end of last week is the same conclusion I'm sticking with. The Giants are not this, Tennessee, New England, Carolina bad. They're just straight up middle of the pack, upper to low 20s to high teens in terms of just both sides of the football. And against this Eagles team, that's probably good enough to stay in a game. The Eagles definitely look so much different and so much better when they have Devonta Smith and AJ Brown. Like, the entire offense has opened up, and obviously Saquon is going to be able to get his and be in the game. I saw he said something tweet wise that he expects Giants fans to be accepting of him. He's not going to get booed. Like, no, bro, they don't fuck with you. Like, I'm sorry. But at the same time, we're talking about Giants run defense. That's dead last in explosive rush percentage. Those numbers are a little bit, overblown. So you have that Joe Burrow run, which, nobody expected, obviously, last week for that touchdown run. That adds to these kind of things. That was a 50-plus yard run. It's a game where I'm laying off. It's not something I'm interested in. I think maybe the 43.5, that's under the key number of 44. So if you want the over, this is a good spot because against the 44, that is a key number in a total to mention. I think that the Giants offense is better than they showed, even though they, laid an absolute stinker on primetime. But if this Eagles defense is able to, generate so much pressure on Daniel Jones, which is definitely not a given at all, as this Eagles defense is 28th in pressure rate. Like, that is sad. And Daniel Jones, as we've seen this year, when he has a little bit of time, he's able to, at least make something happen. And it's not something I'm really interested in, Johnny. There's other games on the slate. I think, again, Saquon, I like him to do well. But I like the Giants to, again, like the Giants, 2-4 team. They're not a team like the Browns where I don't think they're sitting in MetLife saying, oh, my God, we suck. When's the season going to end? I think they think that they could be competitive. And this is a game where they think they're certainly going to, try to bring their A game, and their A game to be able to keep this in 3 or even win outright. I think it's definitely in the realm of possibilities. So I honestly like the Giants as a sneaky dog to win outright.
You brought up something that I wanted to mention. Saquon Barkley, revenge game here. I mean, DraftKings, I'm not really big on taking their touchdown numbers. He's out at -160 for an anytime score. FanDuel hasn't given it out yet. Where would you lay? What's the most you would lay Barkley up to for a score? And do you think he scores at least one touchdown and gets his old?
So I think so. The revenge game. This is like an opposite revenge game narrative. Like the Giants are probably more pissed and will want to like shut him up more than he probably feels this desire to like run rampant all over them, if that makes sense. That being said, I would never lay a -160 on a touchdown as a straight bet. But if I'm concocting a touchdown parlay with 2 like under the radar guys to try to get like the 10-1 range just for the fun, I would add that him as a leg to score touchdown. But I'm not laying a -160 on anybody to score a touchdown.
Yeah, me neither. Miami Dolphins, Indianapolis Colts laying 3, 43.5 points. You could start this one off.
So this handicap for the Colts Dolphins is the same as that handicap I had for the Colts Titans, where if Anthony Richardson plays, give me Miami all day long. Joe Flacco plays, give me the Indianapolis Colts. Anthony Richardson, I think, practiced today, or they said he was trending up today, and the Colts are in a situation where Joe Flacco undoubtedly gives them the best chance to win now, but their future is in Anthony Richardson's hands, so the development of Anthony Richardson is more paramount for the Colts long term. But again, this is a team that thinks they can compete. And again, if they're both healthy, they're playing Richardson for the investment they have in him and for the developmental reasons. But with that being said, they are so much better with Flacco with his ability to actually throw the football. And the Dolphins had their bye actually at a fantastic time for them. Achane finally be able to get healthy. You have Snoop Huntley to be able to have another week of practice in the situation. Tyreek Hill, Waddle, get their affairs in order. Because this is a Colts team that lost to the Malik Willis-led Green Bay Packers, obviously coached by LaFleur, who's a great offensive coach. You have Mike McDaniel, who now we can question a little bit because some of his things he's been doing has not been working out so well offensively. But this Colts defense is still one of the worst defenses in football in terms of schematics, and I think the Dolphins will have success getting the ball in Tyreek Hill's and Devin Achane's hands, and Devon Achane's hands. I think they'll be with to run wild on this Colts defense. Not like run wild as in like put up 200 yards and have it over. I just mean like have very respectable, good football games. But with that being said, this Miami Dolphins pass defense is very, very susceptible to anything from second level on, and Joe Flacco can do that. Anthony Richardson cannot do that. So I expect Mike McDaniel to have literally sat there and studied exactly what the Packers did with Malik Willis in that ground game to find success against the Colts. And now you're doing that, of course, with Achane, who's a stud. Mostert's healthy. Obviously, you can mix in Tyreek Hill on screen passes or even on a little pop pass or a handoff as well. And I think that elite speed does present some problems for the Colts. So I'm very curious to see, because I think if Richardson comes down, that 3 is gone. I think if Richardson's playing, I think this is a spot for Miami if they're playing Richardson. But if it's Flacco, I lean more toward Indianapolis here, as he just literally is the better quarterback as it currently stands. And I'm not ready to say the Dolphins team is as a horrible football team. I make this game, pulling up my numbers, I make it actually Indianapolis -3.5, and it opened at 4, and now it's gotten bet to 3 just to put that into a little bit of perspective here. But I think the Dolphins can win outright as a road favorite in the right situation. But another thing that the Colts have going for them in their back pocket is, say Richardson does start and he does get knocked out of the game, like Joe Flacco again presents it's literally night and day for what they're doing on offense. And I think that the Colts will have success with Flacco. So got to stick to the injury reports here and see what's going on. But I think Miami's key guys will, in the prop markets, if they're as poorly priced as they were in that Patriots game, where you're getting like Tyreek Hill at 60 plus yards at like plus money. Like I haven't seen it they're out like that, but like give me that all day long. And real quick, Johnny, LA Dodgers 1-0.
We like when the Dodgers score first. We like when the Mets have to play from behind. Yeah, listen, I don't have any opinion right now. I need to definitely know. I can't even handicap this game until I know who's starting. But I agree with your sentiment. I think Joe Flacco provides an interesting twist. I don't like Miami at all. I don't think they have any sort of juice, which is so insane to think about when you consider the track team of the offense that they have. And while their defense isn't that good, you still have some playmakers. But with Snoop Huntley back there, it's not good. There's no other way to say it. I mean, I understand Tua is their guy, but truth be told, man, I don't know why Miami hasn't felt the need to call up the Rams and see what you can get for Matthew Stafford, even as a rental. I know that's not baseball, typically not something you do, but in a situation like this, man, I mean, let's look at the facts. Tua is supposed to come back at some point this year. Let's say he does. You don't know what he looks like. And you're always at the risk where one hit might end Tua's career. He's getting to the point where it's dangerous with him. He's entering the Chris Borland territory. He's entering Luke Kuechly territory where these guys retired young because they took too many hits and they have too many concussions. And he's only got 3 documented concussions in the last couple of years. Documented being the key word. These guys get their bell rung all the time that, might be categorized as a concussion. So the whole thing is, I think Matthew Stafford should have been on a plane to Miami because this is a Super Bowl team with Matthew Stafford. One phone call, they're a Super Bowl team. No question about it. That being said, I can't bet Snoop Huntley. I don't think he's good. And I know the offense is new to him and he's just starting to get his groove. It's just it's all bad, dude. I really can't get behind it whatsoever.
The Colts lost to freaking Malik Willis, so I don't put anything past the Colts, like being able to stop any bad person at this point, honestly.
Well, I guess we'll see. How about the Falcons? 3-point favorites at home against Seattle. High total, one of the highest totals of the week. Eric, I need a little bit more time on this game. But I'll say this, man. Seattle Seahawks have a tough travel spot. I think I might be inclined as of now to potentially lay this 3 with Atlanta. I don't love what I've seen from the Falcons. They beat up on Carolina. That's not that impressive. They should have lost to Tampa. But I'll say offensively, they're starting to find their groove. And the Seattle defense has not looked good. It's been very weak. And I think if Byron Murphy and some of these other key guys are out for the Seattle defense, I don't know who is going to stop the two-headed monster of Bijan and Algier. And London's playing well, and Darnell Mooney's finally starting to realize this potential he's had for years. Cousins getting into a groove finally. I think I would lay it with Atlanta.
Gonna be the first one where we're truly opposite here because Seattle's like on the verge of making my card of +3. I like Seattle. I actually haven't bet anything yet this week, so again, opinion is definitely subject to change, but I strong opinion on Seattle to start, and that's something that really again is probably going to make my card. Geno Smith has also been a great quarterback in a dome-controlled environment, so that's something to monitor going into Atlanta. I know you mentioned the cluster injuries for Seattle has really bogged them down, and they're still apparent. But as the weeks go on, with these teams, get used to playing with the personnel that they have, I think that they do improve. And I think this Falcons team is just punching above their weight class now. I don't think they're a bad team. I think you can also attest to this, Johnny. I know you're a Falcons fan. I know you've been a little bit – obviously, your skepticism on Atlanta was all warranted, but I think it has kind of backfired a little bit as they played better than you probably even expected as a fan. So far this season. And I don't think that I'm not going to say it's not real because I think that they're better than an average team 100%, but I don't know that this is a team that is really better, that much better than Seattle, and home field advantage, as we know at this point in the NFL, is not worth 3. And I would consider these teams relatively neutral or on the same stratosphere. I make the game Atlanta minus 1.75, and that's before I haven't adjusted for all the news yet and injuries and things like that and spot situations. I do that after my initial numbers, but my initial numbers has Atlanta 175. And considering what we know about Seattle, it's not like there's anything we're expecting to pop up more on the injury report, things like that. I don't see how this gets me to Atlanta -3 at any point. And we're talking, of course, about a field goal game. These teams obviously are two very pass-heavy teams, which is why the total is so high. Both defenses have gotten shredded. But if it came to shove, I would expect the Seahawks to actually play better. And again, just a trend that comes from Cleve TA, one of the absolute goats. Follow him on Twitter at Cleve Analytics. Awesome. And again, I'm not betting solely on trends, but just talk about how the mini bye is really helpful for Seattle, especially considering how tough their travel was in the beginning of the year. Like having these extra days are really helpful for them. And away underdogs with the mini bye like Seattle, 48-33 against the spread the last 10 years against teams with normal rest. That's a 59% clip. Since 2019, 22-13. That's a 63% clip. Again, I mentioned Geno being much better in a dome. I mentioned just simply the fact that despite the wins that Atlanta has racked up recently, I'm not overly impressed that this team is like so much better. And again, we're talking about a Seattle team that got mowed down by the Lions, fantastic team. The Giants, tough travel spot in, a game where I'm not even going to make excuses. They played poorly. Then San Francisco, a wagon. So I don't think that Atlanta falls in the category of Detroit, San Francisco. Obviously, they're better than the Giants. But again, considering the situation there and how the Seattle offense has, played well at times, this is a game, again, where just numbers-wise, I make it 175. I like Seattle with the 3.
I get where you're going, and I'm not even saying it's a do factor. I do like the extra rest factor here, which is typically something that I would support. But when you look at what's been happening, what have you noticed the last 3 games on this losing streak for the Seahawks? What have you noticed?
Because they can't stop a nosebleed, and Geno's throwing too much.
Can't stop a nosebleed in what regard, though?
Defensively, they got shredded, but again, they got shredded. Daniel Jones, you can't make an excuse for, but they got shredded in the run game and the pass game by the Niners and the Lions, which are 2 teams where it's okay to get shredded by. I'm not going to lie.
The run game. That's what I'm more specifically interested in. And the reason why is with all these injuries that they have up the middle, I think unless that gets resolved, I don't know if they're going to be able to do enough in order to limit Bijan and Algier. I don't. I think if Atlanta goes a run-heavy game script, I think it's going to be a situation where the Falcons can really, really control the clock, kind of the way the Giants did against Seattle. And that's what's going to be the tough angle for the Seahawks to try and win. Now, obviously, what Atlanta's been pretty good at overall this year is red zone defense, keeping those touchdowns off the board and making teams settle for 3. Now, I totally get it. I think the Seahawks are kind of ready to right the ship. This is a team that the both of us had as getting a wild card spot. Unless their guys come back. If they're dealing with the same injuries and the key guys don't come back, I don't know how they stop the Falcons unless the Falcons completely implode, which is possible.
Yeah, and again, these are 2 teams, though, that are 2 of the top 10 teams in neutral pass rate, Atlanta being 8th and Seattle being 2. They want to throw the football. I don't think that they're going to change their game plan thinking that, the best way to beat Seattle is, only on the ground. You could also probably beat them in the air. And I have these 2 teams relatively equal. You add home field advantage. There's no world barring another Ken Walker injury that we don't know about popping up where I get to 3. And I know sometimes I don't trust my numbers because obviously making NFL numbers are hard. And it's not something that there are times where I fade my numbers. There are times where I really have conviction. These are 2 teams where at this point, though, where I feel very strongly that I'm pretty right on. I could obviously be wrong. I've been wrong before. We'll be wrong again. But I think that I have good understandings of these 2 teams. And I like Seattle catching 3 here.
That's why we like to go against each other sometimes. Now, this is one where I am having a little trouble with. The Lions are a 1.5-point favorite, underdog at Minnesota coming off a bye. I'll let you take this one first, but I would like to point this out. Every time I've won against Minnesota, I've lost. That hurt. The floor is yours.
So I had because I have a Mike McDonald Coach of the Year ticket. I also have a Kevin O'Connell Coach of the Year ticket. So I'm all for the success of the Vikings. I make the game with the injury considered. I make it Minnesota -1.5. So I'm entirely on market here. The Lions defense, you can obviously, throw the football over them. This Vikings defense isn't good, but it's no juggernaut as we saw in that Packers game. Like they can, even in the Jets game toward the end, like you can move it on them. It's not like they're impenetrable. And this Lions offense is obviously one of the best in football. It's going to be annoying, I guess, to say that I'm going to be like on such a fun game that I really don't have a strong opinion on. But I really don't, Johnny. So if you have more to dive in and bigger, more confident thoughts on, like be my guest, because right now I'm looking at this game. It looks to me it's properly priced, high total. Obviously, Justin Jefferson and Jameson Williams props out the wazoo, all in favor. David Montgomery, of course. Something that will be a fun game that I'm sure will have not the same game parlay because I like to like mix and match legs, but I would definitely expect to have at least 2 legs that I find in this game that are within other parlays for player props.
Yeah, this is going to be a same game parlay. Dude, I've been waiting for the Vikings to regress to the mean, and I think it's coming. I don't know if it's this week, though. Minnesota has definitely exceeded, I would say, almost everybody's expectations. Brian Flores has been running a great defense, which is something that he's known for. I don't know, though, dude. I really don't. I think what I would say is I need a little bit more time to give a proper opinion. But do we think the Lions are going to lose this game?
It's entirely possible. I mean, again, it's a 1.5 point spread. So, of course, I'm not going to say like the market is, you're talking from a money line perspective too. I haven't looked, but I'm sure it's, no more than -120-ish. So, implied probability. That's not saying that, the Vikings are definitely winning this game. Like that's obviously not what the market is saying here by any means. I think it's entirely possible. I think the Aiden Hutchinson injury cannot be overlooked. I don't want to talk too much on it because that's probably all everybody's heard this week. But yeah, it's something to consider. Their entire defense is predicated on getting pressure up front and stopping the run up front. And your best pass rusher by a mile is now not, unfortunately, on your team anymore for the time being. That can't be overstated. The Vikings with the extra time to prepare for this Lions attack. I don't think the Lions blew their load. Obviously, they destroyed Dallas, but I don't think that was a game where it's they had their one crazy game and now we're going to see them regressing. No, it's still a high-powered, fantastic offense. It's going to be a fun one. The Lions can lose this game though, 100%. I'm not. It's again, I haven't bet it. I'm planning on betting a side, but if I wake up or I'm watching the game and it's 4:30 p.m. and the Vikings won by 3, I'm not blinking an eye. If the Lions won by 20, I'm honestly not blinking an eye either.
You got me. I think the blew the load thing is definitely something that I've seen a lot of the time.
Possible,
listen, we're sorry, but honestly, I don't know how else you say this. This isn't just in football. This is in baseball. We've seen basketball, whatever the sport is. When a team puts up so many points or so many runs in one game, the below the load factor is definitely something you would think of. And I don't know how else that you can even say that. What I don't think there's another term or word that you can use to say blow your load. I think that's what the Lions may have done. So honestly, now with the Vikings off the bye, I mean, it's definitely leaning in their favor. That actually kind of woke something up with me. I would probably lean Minnesota early. I'm rooting for the Lions. The Lions are my Super Bowl pick, but I think early leaning might be Minnesota now. Now you kind of put up the light bulb there. Rams laying 6.5 at home off the bye against Vegas. May have Cup Daddy coming back. Devontae is out of town. Welcome to the Jets. I don't know. I mean, listen, dude, the Rams, it's tough to lay this big of a number with them. I could honestly see some buyback coming down on the Raiders sharp money style.
We've seen a little bit.
I'm not gonna give a play out just yet because I have a feeling that we might see the sharps coming on Vegas because everybody's gonna say, "Ooh, no Devontae Adams, our offense is limited." Like they've been playing without Tay the last few weeks, and honestly, I think there's people that would say this is addition by subtraction. Not to say that Tay's washed by any stretch. Tay is still a top receiver, but he doesn't want to be there. And the fact is, like, he's limiting this offense because, they rely so much on him. Now that he's gone and it's a clean break, now you're going to see some of these other guys step in. You're going to see Jacoby Myers take a bigger role. You're going to see Trey Tucker take a bigger role. I mean, you've seen some flash from – you're going to have Brock Bowers hopefully jump off the screen. So I honestly think this is a spot I'm waiting on to see if we get the Royal Mint. If we get the Raiders 5.5, I'm firing away. But I do think the Rams win this game off the bye, especially if Kupp comes back.
So I make this game a lot closer in the market. I actually make it 5. Obviously, when I'm so far off, I default to the market. It's happened like weeks 1, 2, and 3 when I really think it is a crapshoot. But after 6 weeks of data, the market is the market. So I tend to believe when I'm so far off that I'm the one who's made a mistake somewhere. Kupp obviously coming back would be big. But I agree with you so wholeheartedly on the Devontae Adams thing. I'm glad you mentioned that. Not just because of the fact of what actually happens on the field, but you don't think that the Raiders were tired as hell, the players watching Devontae Adams on the Kay Adams show talking shit when he's sitting next to you. Those things piss off the team, and that's a locker room cancer. And now that is gone, I think that is only boosting. Obviously, again, you're losing at this point, one of the best receivers in football, though. His numbers are been a little bit worse, but I wouldn't be shocked to see them, jump right back up. Obviously, hamstrings healthy right away and whatnot. But I do agree that from an inherent numbers perspective, I'm never getting to Rams -7. And that automatically creates value on Las Vegas. But betting money, Aiden O'Connell is also something I'm not too interested in. But the Rams defense is bad. And also, I want to point out that home favorites off the bye are actually not doing well recently against the spread. It's all priced in, and it's actually an overvalued spot. Again, shouting out to Cleve TA, the absolute GOAT. Teams off a bye were just 54% from 2018 and 46, but just 46 in 2019. Home favorites off a bye just 50% against the spread since 2000 and 40% in the last 5 years. It's just a spot where they're situationally being overvalued, and when the home favorites over a field goal last 3 seasons, small sample, 33% against the number. So again, you have a huge quarterback, obviously, advantage for Los Angeles and a huge coaching match for Los Angeles. But again, the loss of Adams is a positive at this point for Las Vegas. This defense for the Rams is bad, so I don't like laying a number this big with a bad defense. So I think it is a Raiders or bust spot.
Agreed. I think that you don't have to make the bet this early in the week. I do think it's a big number, and I agree with you. Aiden O'Connell, the Raiders, it's tough to even take this kind of a number with. The cup factor is going to be interesting, but I'll say this. I think sometimes we get a little caught up in the trends because each is a case by case, and I am interested now that you've brought up a point where the number is baked in, right? So maybe ordinarily 2 years ago, this line off a bye would have been Rams plus or -4.5, but it's 6.5, or it would have been 5.5 or whatever. So I think that is a good point. Although I will say I typically try to stay away from numbers or not numbers, but specific trends of this nature. As Frankie Lindor, man, breaking news: Frankie Lindor struck out with the bases loaded, 2 outs. Can't do that. That's it. That's a swing. You only get a couple of those opportunities. Walker Buehler struck him out. He's having a much better game than I think a lot of us thought.
For sure. for sure.
Carolina catching 8.5 at Washington. Our boy Jaden Daniels looking very, very good. Did drift in the MVP market. I think the market's overblown. Daniels losing to a fellow MVP candidate in Lamar. He dropped back like 10% or so, probably like 20%. I don't understand it, especially because they're not conference rivals. Washington Commanders, dude. This is a team that I think is going to be competing for a 2 seed. 8.5's a lot, though. What do you think?
If you're competing for a 2 seed, then you should definitely be hopping on the Daniels MVP. I know you already have that big exposure, but I guess just for the general audience, like if you're back to the Burrow discussion, like yes, there is team success equated in there. So if you didn't get in where Johnny got in that crazy 110 to 1, now is again maybe a time to buy back in.
111
to 1, beautiful. Again, though, back to the general point, I'm not laying 8.5 points for the defense is horrible ever under any circumstance. I think it is, as a fan of Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders, the fact that we are 8.5 point favorites in the year 2024 makes me smile and happy, though they're absolutely not covering that number because this defense is so horrific. You don't lay point. Like Washington has the ability to win by margin because they're so efficient offensively, but at the same time, they're the prime get backdoored candidates also because their defense is abysmal. And that's why I just look to the over. This is the 3rd time this season where I simply said as my handicap, you have a great offense and a horrible defense against a decent offense with the Carolina Panthers and a horrible defense. You bet the over, cash with Baltimore versus Washington, cash with Arizona versus Washington. I like the over here. For me, it's over or bust. You have, again, like this Panthers defense is terrific, but they can move the ball. Chuba Hubbard's going to have a great game against Washington. Deontay Johnson is going to be able to have a great game against Washington, a la Isaiah Flowers. Like we said, Johnny, any wide receiver 1, and not wide receiver 1 meaning Jamar Chase's and Just Jerks of the world's only, anybody who is the top target clearly on a football team against Washington will have success. And I expect, again, Chuba and Deontay to have great games. On the Washington side, Jaden Daniels is just so amazing. And I'm not even going to like buy some of these narratives I see on like Commanders Twitter where like you saw a picture of Jaden Daniels like sulking on the sideline after the loss, like like demons come in, like he's pissed off competitor. Like I believe he's that big of a competitor, but like that's not why I even looked for Washington. Again, I'm not laying that shit with this team because of their defense. Yeah. Horrible defense, great offense, decent defense. I mean, horrible defense, decent offense. Give me the over.
Touchdown props, a little interesting here. I'm not laying 165 with Brian Robinson. Maybe might take an interest in 2 touchdowns with him. But you can get Deontay a plus 155, which I think is amazing, especially against his Commander secondary. Xavier Legette getting the end zone again, plus 230.
Don't hate. Definitely don't hate.
That's a very appealing number.
It is. What's Chuba at?
Chuba's minus 125.
Parlay piece.
Parlay piece. I think like last week, there's a lot of parlay pieces like there was with Commanders Ravens. I think it's the same way here with Commanders Panthers. All right. We've been teasing everybody in, and I know you've been waiting for it. This is a Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl rematch. Niners home favorite. I don't know. Chiefs coming off the bye week. It's I don't even need to go into detail. It's this simple. Patrick Mahomes is an underdog. Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes off the bye. That's it.
You got the mini bye for San Francisco, which I think evens it a tad bit. Emphasis on a tad. The number is fair if you're talking pure market ratings. I make the game Niners minus 1.5, but I will gladly lose my money betting on Patrick Mahomes as underdog any day of the week. And I hate to be so bland. I hate to not be talking EPAs and diving into the stats that you guys clearly know I love to do. Is the best quarterback on the planet. I know he's having a crappy season. I know people on Twitter are going after him. I know they're pulling up the numbers. Nah, like come on. If you actually think Patrick Mahomes isn't good at football or overrated or anything like that, like you just aren't. You don't know ball. Plain simple. Patrick
you don't know ball.
You don't know ball. Patrick Mahomes is an underdog. There is a keep it simple, stupid situation. If they lose by 50, I will gladly have FanDuel, DraftKings, whoever I end up betting it with, they could gladly have my money. I'll go down with the ship any day of the week.
I might take Chiefs -2.5 alternate at +120. Typically, 80% of the NFL games are outside of 1 or 2 points anyhow. I'm not laying a vig with the Chiefs money line at -102 or even money. I'm getting something for it. Chances are, if they win, they're going to win by at least a field goal. So -2.5 at +120 would take a shot here. To be honest with you, I would take a shot at laying Kansas City -6.5 at +240. I think there is a scenario where the Chiefs win and win big. I don't think San Francisco right now is playing to the level that a lot of people would expect. They're good, they're very good. And the same can be said for Kansas City, but this is the kind of game that Kansas City was just going to get turned up for. There's no real numbers to back this up. This is just years of watching Patrick Mahomes. This is like one of these spots he gets up for. I don't have numbers to back this up. This is just like, this is some of those, sometimes you just need like the intuition and you need to go with your gut. I think, San Francisco is a good team, but they've shown that they can be susceptible.
I was on a show earlier this week with some great guys at the Hammer Betting Network. I was working with Suma on Twitter, and he pulled up the stat. I think it was Mahomes is like, I'm going to misquote it because I don't remember exactly. Didn't look it up, but I think it was 16-3 straight up as an underdog in his NFL career. Like, again, trends. I'm not a trend better by any means, but if I'm losing money, I'd rather lose money on Patrick Mahomes as an underdog than being like fake sharp betting on Aiden O'Connell against the Rams. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I lose on Patrick Mahomes, I will tip my cap and gladly pay up. As an underdog, I should say. Because when it comes to laying points, the odds, it's a different story. As an underdog, I will gladly pay.
Yeah. Jets, 1.5 point favorites at Pittsburgh. It looks like there is a real shot that Russell Wilson will be starting this game. Don't understand it. I don't know why. Justin Fields has led this team to 4-2 record. He's played pretty well overall. I don't know what the feel is to make a switch like this, but please, I hope this is true. I'd be betting the Jets the entire way. I don't even care about the Devontae Adams pickup at this point. This is simply Russell Wilson is garbage. He's always been garbage. And I'm going to take the Jets with basically their season on the line to get a much-needed win in Pittsburgh.
I don't disagree at all. I've been vocal about it on Twitter about not giving a crap about the Devontae Adams news. So we're thinking that it's such like a massive, upgrade or anything like that for the Jets. So this again, I think it's important to note that it's not because of that, because I think that's realistically one of the most square ways to look at this. But again, if Russell Wilson plays, it's obviously gonna. I think he's not good at football anymore, as we know. Justin Fields has been playing well and much better than anybody could anticipate, though. It's not like he's lighting the world on fire. He still missed like 3 wide open receivers in that Raiders game where they could have, put it on the Raiders, despite they still did in a sense, but could have been a bigger margin of victory there. Steelers, they were never winning because of their offense anyway. It's all because of their defense. We saw with Buffalo that obviously there was that bullshit roughing the passer and just so much nonsense, missed field goals in that game on Monday with the Jets. I just don't know why this is the primetime game. Like, why are they shoving the New York Jets down our throats? Like, regardless, digression aside, I do agree at this point is the Jets or bust spot. But with that being said, if the Steelers defense, which is not like it's like ridiculously good, though it is good. 12th in pressure rate, they do get to if they do get to Rodgers, we see that obviously he's an older quarterback, but the pressure does get to him. And again, I need more time on this one to really make like a decision on the handicap here. But with that being said, the initial lean is definitely looking in the direction of the New York Football Jets. And that's a team that I backed on Monday. Unfortunately, had to take that L. All in the game. And I hate that this is what I have to watch on Sunday night.
Yeah, I don't know why they couldn't have flexed this one. I mean, I don't know under what scenario you wouldn't put the Super Bowl rematch on some sort of primetime. You have 3 primetime games, and 2 of the 3 aren't good. I don't really, I don't know what they were thinking. If they were on drugs that day, not really sure. But we do have a good Monday night game. Well, the first game.
Monday night games, yeah.
One good one solid one. Ravens 3.5-point favorite at Tampa Bay, 49.5-point total. Eric, what's the line here?
3.5. Baltimore Ravens spot.
I'm going with 3.5. This is a number. This isn't the Royal Mint type of number, but this is my second best number that I always play. I've found nothing but success with this number. I honestly don't think any 3.5-point favorite that's closed as such has lost this season outside of Miami in week 1. I might be wrong, but honestly, every time I see a 3.5, they're always winning and covering. I would like Tampa Bay to win, for a lot of reasons. But being purely objective, I think this is a Baltimore Ravens spot. The Bucs defense looks absolutely atrocious. They got lit up by Spencer Rattler. They got lit up by Kirk Cousins. They're not going to be able to stop the run. Derrick Henry is running like he's got another 5 MVP type of years left on him. Lamar's looked good. I think there's a lot more love on Lamar than there needs to be outside of that one great game against Cincinnati. But these secondaries, like these receivers, are open by 10 yards. I watched that Washington game. Every time he threw the ball downfield, somebody was open, and they could have stopped to have a cup of coffee. So, we'll give it. He's played well, but I think there's a lot of other components for that. The point is, I don't think Tampa Bay's defense is going to be able to stop them. I will say, I think the Ravens run a similar type of defense as Denver does, and we saw that Denver was able to get after the Bucs. Obviously, they don't have a Patrick Surtain, but Marlon Humphrey's still solid. They have a really good safety in Kyle Hamilton. They have the ability to get after the passer. I think the Ravens win this one, and they probably win this one by at least a touchdown.
See it. I definitely see it. I think despite the fact that the Buccaneers have made me eat my words on them, from the get-go, up, happens. You're going to misevaluate. You're going to get things right. You're going to get things wrong. This is a dead over game for me, too. This one has gotten bet up as well. So the market's in agreement, but as we've seen with primetime games and whatnot, what I'm noticing with especially with primetimes, there's been for example, last week's Sunday night game, a game I took the over in of 17 total points or whatever it was, and obviously lost, though I got it again, CLV. But I see the early buy where I agree with on the total. Then there's the middle, close to the game time, I'm talking a 24 hours before, where it gets bet down. Then right before game time, it gets bet back up to a number. And I think that this is a game where we might see another 48 pop up. But if it gets to that 48, which is a key number, I'm all in on this over. What the Buccaneers are doing on offense, I know it hasn't been necessarily against great opponents, and they did lay that egg against the Broncos, but I think that they're still going to be able to move the football. This Ravens defense is really not good. They're a pass funnel, and Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and co. are clearly moving the football very well in the passing game. On the flip side, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, I think, is very overrated. And I think the fact that, if Derek Carr played that game and not to play the what-if game, I think you could have, not saying who would have won, who would have lost or anything like that, but I think we would have seen a lot more points from the Saints, even though they still put up some points in that one. And this Baltimore Ravens offense, I love Lamar Jackson, absolute animal. And obviously Derrick Henry adds this dynamic, and the two of them with Lamar's, because Lamar just keeps his head up, looking downfield when he's in the pocket, and obviously can scramble. This is an explosive-ass offense. This is another explosive-ass offense, another bad defense, another one where I'm keeping it simple. I know there is that little primetime tax where teams come out a little bit, I don't even know the right way to put it, but there is the primetime unders, so on and so forth. It's a trended thing, which is why I think we'll get some buy back at the 49.5. But no, to me, this is another keep it simple, stupid. 2 great offenses, 2 bad defenses. Give me points. Give me an over. This should be a fun ass game, and I think it's an over spot. And I do agree on the spread, though. I like the Ravens. I because again, I agree with your thoughts on the 3.5, but my only devil's advocate was like, if you're betting 3.5 plus 3.5 on Monday and the game closes 3, hitting 3.5 at close, like that's clearly the market saying that they don't care about the 3.5, which is like why I think it's seen the success and why I do agree with that part. And I don't think this is a game where it's going to be like, oh, it's going to get to 3 by tomorrow. It's going to sit 3. It's going to close 3. I think it's a better chance of it closing Ravens -4, 4.5 than it is Ravens closing 3 or even 2.5. So I do like the Ravens, and I love the over.
Yeah. I don't know. The Ravens are playing with a lot of swag right now. They've played a lot of bad defenses, and it doesn't really.
It's another one, realistically.
Exactly. It doesn't get much more difficult. Something of note as well is all the favorites have been cleaning up on Monday Night Football, with the exception of Washington against Cincinnati and Atlanta against the Eagles, which also was a Roman spot, FYI. So I think this is just going to continue. I would love to see Tampa win, and also, if I'm not mistaken, from what I saw, Tampa Bay, the Dollhouse, which is one of the better strip clubs in Tampa, has offered free drinks and free admission to offensive linemen. So you could probably see Tristan Wirfs living it up. Dollhouse, by the way, that was probably my second favorite strip club when I lived down there. That was it was always the move. Yo, when I lived down there, you'd hit the bars, you'd hit Soho from like 9 o'clock, 9:30 to about 12, and then you'd take off to the strip club, spend like an hour there, and then you go home. I mean, it was when you were done with the bar scene and you were just like, I want to get out of here. You got nowhere else to go. Well, in Tampa, you do. You have the strip clubs. Let me tell you, that's the best. No question about it. The finale, the Chargers laying 2.5 at Arizona, 43.5 point total. Marvin Harrison left last week's game early with a concussion. I don't know his status. I can't really make a prediction until I know it. I don't think the Chargers are that good. I just don't. I feel like they've beaten up on a lot of the crappy teams, or they've had a couple advantageous spots. And you know how I feel about Arizona. Like, they got blown out last week. For all you know, this week they come out, they put up 35. That's how they are. I want to see what's good with Marvin Harrison before I make a call.
I agree. I make this game LAC -2.5. It was 1.5 early, so probably missed the boat there. I agree with you that I don't think the Chargers are nearly as good as some of their metrics. Like, I'm going to read out some numbers just to emphasize how good they've been. Adjust for opponent, of course. 4th in success rate on defense, 2nd in EPA per play, 1st in early down EPA per play. They're getting turnovers, 8th in turnover EPA. The pass defense, 4th in passing EPA. 1st in average at the target, though they're not getting any pressure and they're getting a little bit beat up in the middle of the field. And its run defense, 1st in rush EPA, 10th explosive rush percentage. So numbers are impressive as hell. Can't debate those numbers, though. Again, you do have to adjust per opponent. But the one thing that we know with Arizona, like you said, highest variance team, I do agree with that. They're up there. I do agree. Like, we've seen it now for Kyler Murray's most of his career at this point, where it's one gem of a game, one stinker, one gem of a game, one stinker. It's been pretty consistent with him, and his inconsistency has been consistent. But with that being said, man, like, what is stopping J.K. Dobbins from running it 30 times for $135, and like, that's it? Nothing. And that's where they had the edge in Denver. Now it's a worse passing defense where Herbert, who, again, bro, this is my biggest regret of week 6, especially considering the fact that I looked at the line. If I obviously hindsight's 2020, but if I never even sniffed the line, I wouldn't even bring this up. Justin Herbert's passing yard prop last week, if I'm not mistaken, brother, was 213 yards. Like, that is, he had 230 easy cash. That might even been lower than that. I'm going to pull it up because I know where I could find that really quickly. But dude, now you have this Cardinals defense. I know the Chargers pass catchers aren't great, but Justin Herbert is not going to get pressured at all, especially with the great offensive line they have. So he's going to be able to he's still an elite quarterback, Justin Herbert. I hope people don't really disagree with that. I'm not saying he's Mahomes Burrow, but he's just under them. Like he's still really, really damn good. So he's going to be able to really make those plays. And again, the final piece to that puzzle is again like there's absolutely nothing stopping J.K. Dobbins from getting 20 to 30 touches on the ground, and that just being that. And I think it could be a case of it being that simple. And Justin Herbert, bro, never mind. Last week, I knew I was wrong. His passing yard prop last week was 180.5 yards. He had 230. Like the fact that I didn't have Justin Herbert 200 plus in a parlay last week makes me sick. Like
well, he hadn't hit 180 all year.
Doesn't matter, bro. Again, I'm betting on talent over hit rate there. And again,
I get it, but he's going against a secondary that's pretty solid with Surtain against,
Again, we're talking hindsight, so it's not even like worth the conversation at this point. But like when I saw 180, bro, like that's a freaking worse than a Daniel Jones line, bro. But again, digression aside, it's hard. I could see the Cardinals winning this outright, but at the same time, again, like the Chargers are going to run the football, and that it could be that simple. That just run. I don't think shit about it. That's how I see it. So I've been talking too much. You chime in here, Johnny.
Yeah, I want to see some props, but no, listen, I get it. I do. It's hard for me to make the real call unless Marvin Harrison is in. And the reason why I say that is because they already have a thin receiving corps. There's nothing lonelier than being on the wrong side of a Cardinals game for me. The Cardinals kind of blew up. The Cardinals are the reason why I didn't go 5-0 in my circa of millions last week. I went 4-1. I had a couple plays in them in a parlay, or a couple parlays with them as like a centerpiece. But yeah, without Marvin Harrison, I really don't know. It just seems like the Cardinals are always in a precarious spot for me. I would look at some J.K. Dobbins props, but I got to be honest, I don't know yet until I get the full extent of the injury report. Otherwise, I would just be speculating.
And I agree with that. And the one thing I will mention, because the props aren't out yet, but a guy who I loved last week and paid dividends for was Trey McBride. Obviously, his line's going to be juiced with no Marvin. But again, the Chargers, they're middle of the field EPA 17th and the middle of the field attempts 28th. So they're funneling their defense to the middle of the field, and that is literally where Trey McBride lives. And obviously, he's capable. And just because, so that's something where I would monitor. But the Cardinals defense fourth in neutral pass rate, which is because teams just know that they could just run the ball on you. And as we saw last week with J.K. Dobbins getting, I think it was 24 touches, maybe 24 rush attempts, maybe 25 against Denver. I don't know why Harbaugh would do anything differently.
Yeah, totally understand. No official teaser yet, but I do like the look of the Bills -2.5 and the Chiefs +7.5. I think that is something that I would be looking at thoroughly. And there's not enough TD props for us to put it out right now. About only half the teams are out, maybe even less. So not really even worth looking at. But I will say, you can get David Montgomery -125 here, anytime score. That is a very favorable price. Minnesota has been great on defense, but
they're not a juggernaut.
Yeah, they're not a juggernaut. The Lions get up on that goal line with Frank Ragnow and that offensive line, and they run the ball 4 times. Tip your cap if the Vikings stop it, but I don't think they do. I don't think they do.
I agree. I actually looked while we were talking, because I mentioned the Tyreek Hill potentially, just like, because again, against the Patriots, it was like 45.5 and 60 plus was 60 plus yards with plus money. I'm seeing 55.5 for Tyreek Hill on a receiving yard prop. I don't care if it's Stu Puntley. It's a similar situation where, one, it still hit with Stu Puntley last week, and two, anytime a man can get it on one pass, I'm not saying that because you could say, oh, like anybody could do it. You look at Alec Pierce, he hits his legs on one passing. No, like Tyreek Hill's obviously different. 55.5 Tyreek Hill receiving yards. I could play quarterback, and I'm taking that.
Yeah, we We certainly could. We ran a little long today, but the boys will be back on Friday talking a little playoff baseball. Your boy Johnny V is going to be at the Met game tomorrow. Very excited for that. Eric, it's so great always having you here, brother. I love doing this, and look forward to doing it on Friday.
Yes, sir. Gonna have a little talk about the Yankees. I know you despise them. We could talk about their path to the World Series and how
Mickey Mouse. It's Mickey Mouse. We're talking about the Dodgers World Series in 2020 is Mickey Mouse. How does this get any easier?
I know this pisses you off, Johnny, so I want to tell you. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the pinstripe pass. It's like the Yankees like GA ticket essentially. Comes with like a beer, like whatever, like standing room basically. Guess how much for Game 1 of the World Series a pinstripe pass ticket is at Yankee Stadium?
$1,000.
It's like $750.
For standing room? No,
yeah,
that's good. I'm good, buddy. I will say, I would like to go to the World Series. I really would. But
it's gonna be ridiculous, bro.
Dog, I don't want to spend that kind of money for something that's more comfortable to watch at home.
I don't disagree.
You know what I'm saying? Or go to a bar. I mean, it's one of those things that you want to go to, and what better shot than you have at least one team here in the greater New York City area. God damn, dude. Do you really want to go spend thousands of dollars to watch a baseball game?
I'm with you, brother. I'm not saying that I purchased them. Just something.
I'll tell you what I would do. I would go to Billy's or Stan's and watch the game there.
Oh, for sure.
That would probably be a lot more fun.
For sure. Billy's 8 screens, all freaking projectors up there, popping 100%. It'd be great.
You would save about 85% of the money that you would spend. 100%. For a full game at Billy's or Stan's, you're probably going to spend maybe like $150, $200. Yankee Stadium, you're going to spend $1,000 at least.
Yes,
at least $1,000. So, something to note. Who knows? Maybe we'll take that trip. I'm just saying. Maybe the boys will try out one time.
For sure.
Well, we appreciate everybody for hanging in. I know it was a long one tonight. We typically don't run that long, but we will see you again on Friday to talk a little bit of the NL and AL playoffs. Best of luck this weekend with your football wagers. We will see you in a couple days.
So see everybody.
All right. Thank you, guys.